You didn't lose your job. Your job left first, and it took your retirement date with it.
Right now, somewhere between 6 and 7 out of every 10 people who retire this year did not choose the month they stopped working.
Something chose it for them, a layoff, a bad diagnosis, a parent who needed full-time care.
And here's the part that should bother you even if you're nowhere near retirement. Most of those people had a plan.
A real one, contributions, a target date, a number they were chasing. The plan wasn't the problem. The problem is what the plan assumed.
I spent the last few weeks pulling apart the research on this, government surveys, insurer filings, the academic paper that basically invented the safe withdrawal rate, idea we all lean on.
And what I found isn't one risk, it's 3, stacked on top of each other, all pointing at the same narrow window of years.
If you're anywhere between your mid-30s and late 50s right now, that window includes you.
Here's the standard advice, the stuff you've heard 100 times. Max the 4, 101K, don't touch it. Wait for the right age, leave off 4% a year once you get there.
None of that is wrong. It's just incomplete. It's a plan for the version of retirement where you get to pick the exit.
Most people don't get that version. Think about how a retirement calculator actually works. You type in a balance, a savings rate, an expected return, a target year.
It spits out a number. The number looks fine. You close the tab and feel good.
But what you actually just modeled is a bet that your health, your employer, the stock market, and Congress all stay cooperative for the next 15 or 20 years.
That's 4 separate systems, none of which you control, all needing to behave for your plan to land on schedule.
Historically, that bet does not have a great track record. Your retirement date isn't a decision. For most people, it's a coin flip dressed up as a spreadsheet.
Here's the image I keep coming back to.
Picture a road trip where the gas gauge has a known defect. Every driver's manual admits it reads 3 to 4 years fuller than what's actually in the tank.
You don't find out until the tank's already dry, usually somewhere past the last exit. That's what a lot of retirement plans look like once you check them against what actually happens to real people.
Let me tell you about someone I'll call Marcus. 50, 4 years old, around 230,000 saved, target retirement at 66.
On paper it worked. He had 12 years to close the gap and a plan to do it. Then at 57, he tore his rotator cuff falling off a stepladder, nothing dramatic, just an ordinary accident.
4 months out of the physical side of his job, while he was gone, his department got restructured. He came back to a smaller role and a real pay cut.
He adjusted the spreadsheet, pushed the date back 3 years, kept going. 18 months later, a second round of layoffs caught him anyway.
He was 59, with about a year of expenses in the bank and a 401K he couldn't touch penalty, free for another 18 months.
Nothing about Marcus's math was wrong. What was wrong was the one-line item no calculator asks you to enter. What happens if the clock stops early?
So let's talk about the second problem, the one that hits people who do make it close to their target date.
Call it the triple squeeze, because 3 separate costs tend to land in the same 12-month window, right when you stop earning.
First, the coverage gap. If you retire before 65, you're not eligible for Medicare, and as of this year, the extra subsidies that used to soften ACA marketplace premiums have expired.
That subsidy cliff is back, and if your income sits above roughly the mid-60,000 mark as a single filer, you're paying full sticker price for insurance.
For someone in their early 60s, that can run close to $1,000 a month before a single doctor's visit.
Multiply that across 2 or 3 years of bridge coverage, and you're easily $8,000 to $12,000 a year. Sometimes more depending on where you live money that never shows up in age.
Standard retirement projection. Second, Social Security timing. Claim early at 62, and your monthly benefit is locked in at a permanently reduced rate for the rest of your life.
Wait past your full retirement age, and each additional year adds roughly 8% to your check, guaranteed for as long as you live.
There's no index fund on Earth offering a legally guaranteed 8% annual bump just for patients.
Social Security is the one asset in your plan that can't be crashed by a bad market. Waiting on it is a decision, not a scheduling detail.
Third, lost compounding. Every year you leave the workforce early isn't just a year of missing contributions.
It's a year your existing balance doesn't get to grow either.
Run the numbers on a moderate saver forced out 5 years ahead of schedule, and the combined hit from missing contributions plus missing growth can easily total $200,000 to $300,000
by the time they'd otherwise have retired. Stack all three: the coverage gap, the reduced benefit, the lost compounding, and you get why so many people who technically made it
to retirement are still shocked by what it actually costs. Now here's where I want to push back on the number everybody quotes, the 4% rule.
It came out of research in the 90s. Withdraw 4% of a balanced portfolio in year one, adjust for inflation every year after, and historically, you'd survive a 30-year retirement in
vast majority of scenarios. Even the researcher behind the original number has since said it was probably too conservative for a standard 30-year timeline.
But early retirement isn't a 30-year timeline.
If you're stepping away at 60 or 62, you might need that money to last 40 or 45 years, and over that kind of stretch, most researchers now suggest something closer to
3.5%, not 4, on a $600,000 portfolio. That gap alone is around $6,000 a year, every year, for decades.
And the real danger isn't even a bad average return. It's a bad first few years.
If the market drops hard right after you retire and you keep withdrawing the same dollar amount, you're selling off a much bigger slice of a much smaller pie. That's called sequence of returns risk, and it's quietly responsible for more retirement failures than a genuinely low lifetime average return ever is. Let's go back to someone I'll call Alina, 50. 360,000 saved, targeting 800,000 by 65.
Reasonable plan, reasonable advisor, reasonable person. But run her numbers assuming she's pushed out at 60. One instead, health issue, restructuring, doesn't matter which.
She's exiting with roughly $550,000 instead of $800. That's already a $250,000 gap before she's withdrawn a single dollar.
Add 3 years of full price premiums she never budgeted for. Add a reduced Social Security check because she claimed early out of necessity.
Apply a more conservative withdrawal rate because her horizon just got longer.
The gap between her plan and her reality isn't a rounding error over a 25-year retirement. It can total a couple $100,000 in lifetime income.
Her math wasn't wrong. The assumption baked into the math that she'd arrive at 65 on schedule under her own power was the part that broke.
Here's why this matters more for some of you than others.
If you were born in the mid-1960s through 1980, you likely have little to no traditional pension. You started saving under a 401k, only system that didn't exist for your parents' generation, and
you've now lived through 3 or 4 major market shocks in your working life.
Survey after survey finds this cohort expects to retire with several $100,000 less than they believe they'll actually need.
And on top of that, the trustees who oversee the Social Security Trust Fund have projected repeatedly, and the projected date keeps creeping earlier, not later, that without congressional action,
the fund could be unable to pay full benefits sometime in the early 2030s, which lines up almost exactly with when the oldest members of this generation reach full retirement age.
Is Congress likely to step in before that happens? Probably. Lawmakers have patched this system before.
But probably is a hope, not a plan, and I don't build videos or portfolios around hope. Betting on a rescue is not the same thing as having an exit strategy.
So what actually changed for Elena once she ran these numbers herself? Nothing dramatic. She wasn't about to blow up her whole strategy. Most people aren't, and that's fine.
What she did was smaller and more useful. She bumped her contribution up just enough to stop leaving employer match money on the table, which compounds into something meaningful over 15 years.
And she opened a separate account, funded with a few $100s a month, earmarked specifically as a bridge fund for the years before Medicare kicks in.
It won't cover the whole gap. That's not really the point. The point is, she built the failure case into the plan instead of hoping she'd never meet it.
So here's what I actually want you to do this week. 3 things specific to everything we just covered.
1. Run your numbers against 60. 2. Not 67.
Pull your current balance, apply a withdrawal rate closer to 3, and 0.5% instead of 4, and see what monthly income that actually produces.
If you can't do that math in 10 minutes right now, that's the homework.
2. Put a real healthcare line item in your budget for any retirement before 60. 5. Call it somewhere around $10,000 to $15,000 a year per person for marketplace coverage, and
expect that number to climb. It's the expense almost nobody plans for, and almost everybody gets hit with.
3. Treat Social Security timing as an investment decision, not a scheduling one.
That guaranteed 8% annual increase for waiting is about as close to a risk-free return as exists anywhere in personal finance.
Run the bridge, strategy math, living off savings while delaying the claim, before you assume you'll just take it whenever you need it. Alina still hasn't finished that last calculation.
Neither have most of the people I talk to. That's fine. This isn't about getting it perfect in one weekend.
It's about making sure the plan survives contact with a date you didn't pick. The people who retire well aren't the ones who guessed right.
They're the ones who planned for being wrong.
If this was useful, hit like so the channel keeps reaching people who need to see it. And subscribe here on Navira Invests. I'm building out the rest of this framework in upcoming videos.
Check your own runway before someone else picks the exit for you.